All right, hello, welcome. My name is Britton. I work for Archer Daniels Midland, and it is a local company here in Cincinnati. We are the second largest agricultural company in the world. Our IT headquarters is here in Erlanger, and for those of you who are not from Cincinnati, Erlanger is just about 10 minutes south of downtown. So what we're doing today is giving you the opportunity to meet one of our local leaders who has done amazing things with the arts community actually here in Cincinnati. And with that, I'd like to introduce Victoria Morgan.
Hi, Brent. What a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Welcome all students and young people who are thinking about coming to Cincinnati. It's a great town.
It's fun. So Victoria, give us a little bit of your background. How long have you been in Cincinnati, and where did you originally come from?
Okay, so I've been in Cincinnati for 23 years, and I was born in a very conservative little town, Bountiful, Utah. And actually that's where I got my early training from the Christensen brothers. If people know the history of ballet, they're a trio that has been very influential in the development of the art form in our country. And so Ballet West in my early years, that's in Salt Lake City. And then I went on to dance with San Francisco Ballet. And that's, I think, where I got a lot of my aesthetic and a lot of my ideas about dance and the power of dance and the way it can be interpreted. And, you know, I got sort of my ideas about some of the structuring between classical and contemporary and world premieres and legendary choreographers. It's kind of a balancing act. And then when I retired from performing, I got a job as the resident choreographer for the San Francisco Opera. And that was a great experience, really educational. I feel like I learned a lot about choreography by drawing from the people who are in the room, you know, like the singers and those divas, they're not really dancers. So it was interesting trying to figure out what they could do and make it work. It actually was a great experience, but I really felt that I wanted to get back to the gem and where my heart was, which is the art form of ballet. And I put together a portfolio and thinking it would take years to get anywhere because artistic directors don't just come and go like I'm 23 years. I thought it would take a while, but I had interviews right away. And I had an interview in Cincinnati in 1997, and here we are.
And it's history ever since. I love that. So what part of Cincinnati itself kept you here, beyond the ballet itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think I loved, when I first moved here in 97, and we were right there on Liberty and Central Parkway, which is really sort of at the heart of Over the Rhine. And at the time, it was a bit scary. Like we had our windows in our studio were all up high because we had to be a little bit careful. And I was concerned about it because I thought, you know, we have these young kids in their pink leotards and tights coming to dance. And it really was a bit of a challenge in the beginning. And then I started to feel this shift happen. And Over the Rhine, in the meantime, has turned into a vital center and really, I think, symbolic of the evolution and change in our community. I felt the energy around it. I felt the drive and the push for it. You know, Washington Park, it used to be a little bit scary. It's a beautiful place now. I take my dog there. There's a special dog park. And our beautiful music hall was wonderfully renovated. That's where the ballet performs. And then there are all these lovely restaurants, like top-notch chefs coming to our town, to Over the Rhine, to evolve these amazing places to gather, not right now, but still they're opening up now, which is so exciting. And shops, and you know, there's other great art too. I'm thinking of ensemble theater and no theater. I mean, the whole part of this part of our city has become I can't call it metropolitan. It's artsy, it's bohemian, it's forward thinking, it's energetic, and now I'm totally loving, you know, being in the space.
So I will expand on that a little bit because I know Cincinnati Ballet does a lot out in the community, but I know you also do a lot with a lot of the other art forms that are here in Cincinnati. So what kind of partnership do you form with some of the different local organizations?
Oh, yeah, so we're very involved with the Cincinnati public school system. And we have programs. We have a second company, not our main company, our second company. And really, they go to all the schools. That's where our lecture demos happen. That's where our in-school performances happen. And we have a program that I'm especially proud of. It's called Cincy Dance. We're in, I believe this year, over 33, mostly Title I supported schools, where we go in, we teach dance, and we give an opportunity to a whole generation of young people who might not have that opportunity otherwise if we weren't there. And I feel that we have a big influence on changing lives in this community because we get to start with a lot of these young people at a very early age. And truly, there is something about this art form, about the discipline, about the ordered thinking, about the way that you can get your frustration out through movement, and it's more productive than violence or other ways. And so we have a big link. We have a wonderful relationship with Children's Hospital. We've been working with young people who are they're wheelchair bound and cerebral palsy and Down syndrome. And so we have really this great community commitment, and I love that part of who we are. In addition, we have great collaborations with the other arts organizations. We have a phenomenal Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, and we through the generosity of a sadly passed away but longtime donor to all of us, actually, the Nippert Foundation, we're able to have live music. And a lot of ballet companies around the country have not been able to do that. So we have phenomenal symphonic live music. And we've had a relationship long time with the opera. Our dancers are usually off in the summer, so we're always a part of the opera. We're always inside. They've really had us doing some pretty major movement, ballet, dance, choreography inside the operas that they present in the summer. So we're quite integrated. We have really wonderful relationship with each other. It's quite stimulating. You know, we're pushing each other, we're feeding off each other, we're meeting together. And especially actually in this time of COVID-19, there's been a really deep and wonderful sort of sense of camaraderie about how we deal with this and how we move forward with this as arts organizations, performing arts organizations, especially in our community. So it's interesting because you have access. I have access in San Francisco. There was not much linkage between the organizations, but we're quite tight. We're quite connected, and it's really pretty easy to get through the door and to have a meaningful relationship with the arts in this community.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So let's go back to you a little bit. What is your what is your most exciting moment of the day? What's the favorite aspect of being the artistic director at Cincinnati Ballet?
Okay, well, I would say that there are two things. One thing that is I didn't realize, you know, as a dancer, you have to be self-centered. You have to take care of your body. You're looking at the technique. You're seeing how it feels in your body. And am I evolving? And am I over my leg? And is my turnout okay? And is that foot angled and pointed in the way it needs to be? So there's a lot of self-absorption. But as an artistic director, the thing I have really loved, and there's more than one, but I love watching the evolution of our young artists, because, you know, I see some of them have actually, now we have sort of three ways to move up into a company. We have a professional trainee division, which is connected to our academy. And our academy is very extensive. We've got like 7 levels and a lot of, outstanding training in our company. And so those professional trainees have the potential to become second company members. And then those second company members have the potential to become company members. So I'm not talking about just watching our beautiful company members, and many of them come from other places, and it's a fairly international composition of dancers. I'm not just talking about seeing their first moments with the ballet and their evolution into soloist and principals, but I'm also talking about this wonderful evolution from an early age. And I think, I sometimes, I don't know, maybe I would have to say I've kind of turned into a crybaby a bit. I watch some of these performances and I see the way they've honed the technique. And it's a daily practice, it's not something that happens overnight. It's, you hone it, you develop it. It's, day by day, you're pushing, you're driving for it. You may have a vision of what you want it to be, but it takes a long time to get to that place. And so watching them absorb this and watching their bodies strengthen and seeing a kind of artistry come through, because so much of this art form for many dancers, it's not about making a lot of money. It's really about an expression and finding that link with an inner soul and figuring out a way to talk about your life. I said I was born in Bountiful, which is a very, very conservative community, and I really didn't learn how to talk verbally for a very long time. But when I was dancing and when I was in the studio, that was my place of power. And I feel that when I watch these artists. I feel that confidence, and I feel there's a wonderful camaraderie. And of course there's competition, but there's also that cheering for each other, and there's that understanding of the challenge and the fact they all have very similar goals to really be the best, to really drive it, to push forward. And it's amazing to just be around that youthful energy and, that drive for perfection. Really, I mean, it's insane. You can't ever really get there, but there is a drive for it. I love that.
That's amazing. I do want to go back. You were talking about camaraderie, and in the times of COVID-19, I know this is difficult for a ballet and, in the world in general. It's, obviously difficult for everyone. We're doing this from our houses instead of meeting in person, but for ballet and performers in general, everyone tends, you see it in person. So now in the age of COVID-19, everything has to be digital, but it's so difficult. So do you see any way of COVID-19 changing the way the ballet world works?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is interesting because in spite of the fact that, we're physical creatures, and in rehearsal, there's not a lot of conversation. There's so much information that is conveyed. I mean, you get to see a comrade. I get to watch my dancer. If they don't catch on to a piece of choreography, I see how they react. I see the high-strung ones. I see the ones who are more thoughtful, who sit back and kind of wait and get the choreography before they try it. I get to know these dancers in ways that are, in some ways, more revealing than having a conversation. So I feel that there is a society, and while it is I mentioned about taking care of yourself and really thinking about yourself, it's also every day we are with this group of people and working and sweating together and cheering for each other and trying to impress and trying to encourage. I think that has been the biggest issue with COVID. I think that isolation is tough on everyone. I know it's tough on me. I'm used to being with my staff, with my dancers, with my board, with my wonderful patrons, with the subscribers. I'm used to a lot of social contact, and it has been stressful. I teach company class in my living room, and they take their classes in their living room. So let me tell you what the good part is. The good part is that, there are these classes that are being offered literally all around the country. And for the first time, our dancers, they get to take class with Julie Kent, who is artistic director of Washington, D.C. Ballet, and was a major principal dancer with American Ballet Theater. They get to take classes with teachers who they would not have access to around the country. And I think that's something that we may be incorporating, because it's phenomenal. You know, they're used to me, they're used to our ballet masters, and you kind of get, you know, the same thing day after day. But this is different points of view. And also the other thing we did a collaboration with Kansas City Ballet. And so their artistic director taught our class and his dancers too. So we had, like, you know, 60 dancers on Zoom taking class together. And it was so great. It's not that you weren't in your living room, you were, but every time you came, you could look, you know, especially when we got into the center, you could look and see who was doing what. And there was really a nice sense of forming a new camaraderie with another company. So I think that kind of thing is going to change, not going to change. I love that moving forward. I want to keep creating opportunities like that. And the other thing that I think is really big is our art form is about movement. And so, you know, to try and say what this work is that you're going to see, and it's a two-dimensional, it's a print, and it may be a phenomenal photo, and it may trigger your imagination in some way, but really it's so hard for us to talk about what we do and who we are without being able to see movement. And I feel that our contact with and our infusion of work that we've been able to put out on Instagram and Facebook and you know, Twitter and other things, that will be there, that will stay, because it's not only that we're accessing it, but everybody else is too. So that is the way it's a new way of talking about the art form that I'm quite excited about.
Well, and I love what you said about, you know, doing the different teachers in different, you know, regions. American Ballet Theater teacher actually teaching your guys' company class. I think that's amazing. I've seen, you know, being a retired dancer myself, I've seen several of those, like James Whiteside from ABT, American Ballet Theater. He's been doing classes with Ashley Bowder, which is fantastic. And I also, one of the big things for me that I've really taken part in, and I love what you guys have done, is doing the virtual videos where I can watch some of my favorite pieces that either I've seen before or maybe performed before. So I love that you guys have really embraced that virtual, here's who we are. You can't see us, but yes, you can.
Yeah, and I've loved that too. Actually, it's been such a nostalgic trip, you know, at the moment. I mean, we're talking about how we come back, we're trying to figure it out, and we are going to do some summer intensive programming. But at the moment, to be able to go back in time a little bit and see some of those pieces that I loved so much, and to be able to see the dancers, you know, dancers evolve too, so it's a short career. So, you know, remembering some of those dancers, and then also seeing some of the dancers from today who were there and thinking about their evolution. I really, it's been just heartwarming and, you know, a little tear to my eye sometimes.
Of course. And I wanted to bring us to another point, because there's another very big thing on everyone's mind with the unrest that's happening. And I know, being downtown, you guys get to see a lot of that, but there is, and this is not a question I sent you, but I just came up with it. There is a small stigma that comes with the ballet world about not being super diverse. Now, having been with Cincinnati Ballet and several other companies, I know that there is a lot of a push within companies themselves to be more diverse. And I'd love to hear I mean, you guys have done a great job of this, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the diversity within the ballet world.
Well, it was so interesting to me, because I actually, true confessions, am relatively new at that whole social media. Like, I just joined Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and I've had an Instagram account that I still can't figure out exactly how it works, because during COVID. And so I'm a little bit naive about it. And, but I have to say, one thing I have seen is, I can't think of a single sort of major mid-range ballet company in the country that hasn't come forward and made a statement in that social networking about solidarity, about not accepting this inequity, about making a commitment. We have to do something about it. We're a European art form, and admittedly, we maybe haven't done as much as we could do. Most of the organizations are saying, yes, we want to do more. We want to go further. And frankly, I have felt this myself for a long time. And I attended auditions that they held for like 300 African Americans in Dayton. They came from all over the country, and we were able to find a couple of people there. Some are starting in our second company. And I feel that we'll see this evolution eventually, because I feel that it's really important that the training is good. And so all these young people have to be able to have good training. And that's a little bit about what our Cincy Dance program is about. It's about making sure that we can access the talent that is there. And we need to find those scholarships, and we need to help make that happen. And one of the things that I've done is most companies have a resident choreographer. As far as I know, we're the only company with an African-American female choreographer. We have Jennifer Archibald, who came to us. She trained in the Alvin Ailey School. She's tall and beautiful, and she wanted to be a ballerina, so she's got a lot of that ballet technique training. But then she ended up going into hip hop and breakdancing. And she told me, I can make all kinds of money in industrials and commercials and advertisements. But she said, my heart is really in the concert dance. And she has got this sort of phenomenal ability, because you might imagine it might be kind of awkward, of putting together the hip hop, the breakdance, so all that isolation, those port de bras, those aggressive movements and stances, and she has put that inside the ballet technique, not added it on, she put it inside. And I feel that it's taken our dancers a little while to kind of catch on to the idea of it and how their bodies can shift, and the fierceness of it. I have to say, I've never seen our women look more fierce. And I've had a focus about women stepping forward. And I think in some ways, you need to be able to move like that. You need to be able to say, this is part of who I am. This is part of my language. I deserve to have a voice. I can be feisty. I can be, aggressive. And it's been an education for me and for our organization. And I feel like those kinds of steps and that kind of approach must be encouraged, and we must do it not just the one time. We must start really in investing, and we must start enriching our own art form, because we're an art form first, and that's got to be about setting the path and setting the example, and talking to our communities, reflecting who is there, and also having some of those tough conversations. You can have them almost easier in an art form. You can watch this performance and feel like it touched you, it moved you, it made you think about life in a slightly different way. And really, for me, seeing these beautiful classical dancers take on some of this really beautiful and tough hip hop and breakdance, and to see that integration, I find it really inspiring. And I don't know where the art form's going, but I have a feeling that it's going to have this embracing, and I think that's part of what makes the most interesting kind of art. Not just, I love Swan Lake and I love Sleeping Beauty, and it's really good that we have that kind of technical prowess to be able to do that. But on top of that, or in addition to that, I would say we need to have this other side. We need to have a way of talking about movement that connects us to that next generation.
I love everything you said. That was just so on the money. So I love that. So when you were talking about education, so I want to ask you, going back to our interns a little bit, if there was a piece of advice that you could give someone who is trying to pursue a ballet career, what would be one or two pieces of advice that you would want to give?
So if you're pursuing a ballet career, obviously you want to hone the technique. I mean, that is first and foremost, and that is at the base. And so you want to go where the training is good. You want to go where the training is connected to a future. If that's what you want, you need to make sure that you're in a setting where there's that possibility. The other thing I would say is so I was artistic director in the beginning, and then after about 10 years, I became the CEO and the artistic director. And then I thankfully gave that up to be just artistic director for the first time in my, 23 years of a stably financial company. So it's been a great pleasure. But I wish that I had, I'm lucky to have had an education because the campus was right where my studios were for Ballet West. So I was able to do that. It's difficult. We didn't have the internet at that time, but now we do. So now there's no excuses. I would say, make sure that you know about other things that are connected to this art form. Because there's really tiny, small percentage of dancers who actually go in that professional direction, but it's so rich to be a part of it. And this is what I discovered. I wish that I had, taken more finance classes. I mean, in the beginning, I had a friend of mine from San Francisco who was the finance director of San Francisco Ballet, help me read through Cincinnati Ballet finances because I didn't really understand the relationships so much and understand more about capitalization. And there were all kinds of terms and ways to see the budget that I wish I had known, instead had to learn on my feet, and more by the seat of my pants. And it was the same for marketing and the same for development. And I think arts administration, I wish in some ways, if you're thinking about artistic directorship of some sort, and whether it's ballet or something else, I wish that I had had management and leadership classes. I learned a lot just by getting in there and swimming and trying to keep my head above water. And I'm thankful, I'm saying that I took the advice of putting really strong people around you. And while when I stepped in as CEO, there were big deficits, like for our small company, over 800,000. And in that tenure, we built up a over $13 million endowment. We have a $1.5 million operating reserve. So we became a really financially stable, robust organization in that time. And it was painful and sleepless nights. And it was right during the recession. You remember? Oh my gosh, what a crazy time. Mm-hmm. And well, okay, I was lucky to figure it out, but it wasn't without lots of investigation. It wasn't allowed, it was about pleading for mentorship. It was about getting really good people around me. And if I'd had some of that under my belt when I came into the position, I think it really would have helped me. And just for example, I work with these very passionate dancers, and I think they love the notes. They love to know we're watching. Right? So I say, oh, that was really beautiful, but your head really needs to be more over here and here on that step. And you need to be up on that foot, and that foot needs to point right away. And so, I'm used to giving notes. And when I did that with the staff, giving them notes, they're not exactly happy with that. I think they want to be better, but they want to invest their own talent and their own ideas and skills into the position. So it was a big learning curve, and I'm grateful that I had it. And I'm so grateful to be the artistic director of a company that is financially stable. So.
Well, and at a time like this, it's very, very uncertain time. So to have that, solidarity is fantastic. So and that being said, also, I know you have some exciting news to share about where you're going to be located. Go ahead and share that.
Oh my gosh. So we have a new building, and I saw one of those three-dimensional computerized run-throughs of the building the other day, and it's iconic. It's visually stunning. It's GBB and architects, And they did a whole study about deciding what is dance, and they decided it's a combination of grace and beauty, and grace and power, grace and strength. And so sort of every single aspect of it has that almost lovely, you think of grace as something soft and kind of gentle. And so it has some, lines that are thin and more effeminate. And then it's got these really dynamic edges and jags to it. And it's I feel like it's gonna change who we are and what people think about dance. We're gonna have 9 studios. We'll have so much more opportunity. Right now, we only have high-level training. We're gonna be able to do recreational training. And then that training that's so important to the future of this art form, contemporary training and hip hop and, all those things that we want to do, we haven't really had the capacity to do it and to broaden those programs. And I'm out of my brain about it. And so it's right there. It's just up the street from where we are. It's those of you who may know the neighborhood, there's Gilbert and there is 71 North, and we're sandwiched right in between those 2 streets. And so just watch, if you're driving on 71, don't look up, because you can see dancers dancing in that gorgeous studio. It's all glass. And we don't want any distractions, but what a great advertisement. And I mean, seriously, it's the biggest.
And it's a prime spot for you guys too, to be right there. You're super visible. You still have that downtown presence. And I'm so excited for you guys. So then moving on into our next year, we're still a little bit uncertain about how COVID is going to look in the next several months, but what are you excited for your next season?
Well, so that's a secret, because what we're doing is we're having constant conversations. There's a wonderful organization called Dance USA, which is our national service. We're under that umbrella, Dance Service organization. And every Friday at 2:00, we have a COVID-19 conversation. And I feel like I've got the brains of this entire country. There's about 60 ADs and EDs on the Zoom call. And we all talk about, okay, what are you thinking about? And how is it going for you? And how are you managing that negotiation? And how are you managing that communication? And what is your board saying? And what do you need to say to the board to, help them get behind sort of redefining who we are until we can have an audience? And so the conversations have been very lively and very active. I feel really thankful that we do have, like you said, we have a financial security here that they've told us, we need to show that we're making some tough choices. And yes, there's tough choices. We have been determined to keep our staff, but have to make some compromises on other things like 401ks and HSAs and raises and stuff like that. And, we're really hoping that we can hang on to those 35 weeks for our dancers. We're thinking if we open a little bit later, we'll be able to do that. But really, it's in order to announce it, my team would kill me.
Of course.
Say something and it's going to end up being something completely different.
So what you're saying is keep looking on cballet.org. The announcement coming soon.
Yes, we have at least 7 different budgets that we're analyzing.
That's actually wonderful. I love hearing that the artistic directors and executive directors are meeting from across the country. It's providing unity, and everyone we're all in this together. And hearing that you guys are doing just the same thing, it's really fantastic.
It is, and I think that's another thing that will stay, because the camaraderie that's building between the ADs and the EDs it's so, I've seen them on Zoom, so I can get in touch with them via email and say, you said something about this, and can you go into a little more detail about how that might work? And we're thinking about, opening up in this way. And so there's just a new kind of connection on a national basis that was not there before.
Amazing. So I have one last question.
Okay.
Describe your perfect day in Cincinnati.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I know it's going to be difficult. I know.
It is, but my weekends. So I have a little pooch, and one of the great blessings of COVID is that I have been able to be with her 24/7, and we take these wonderful walks. So I would say, like a great day, there's a wonderful little coffee shop and / bookshop that's like right up the street. You know, you grab your little coffee and you go out into the world, and there are wonderful parks not only around, I'm actually right across the river in Covington, just wonderful DeVue Park we've hung out at. And then I also get into, I call it the country. It's actually Indian Hill, but inside those, there's some beautiful walks that are completely, you know, covered and in shade. And so I think that one of the wonderful, it's been difficult, there's no doubt. And I know that I've been a little bit actually crazy about it. But one of the blessings is to really get to see a different part of the city through the walks that I'm taking down the river, on the banks. I'm seeing the city in quite a different way, and I'm loving it. I'm loving what I'm seeing. I didn't even know that we had that much greenery and the paths that are just visually breathtaking. So it's an education for me. And maybe I would say, other than being able to work and do my job, and a job that I love, like having that kind of time in our city has been great.
I love that. Well, again, I want to thank you so much for doing this interview. Cincinnati Ballet has some exciting things going on, and it's been great to talk to you. And I want to just, again, thank you so very much.
It's just a pleasure.